These my dollars make it hurt.
Hey, what's up, guys? Mike here with Practical Training Professionals. So glad to be back in the studio today, guys. We're going to be talking about something we get a lot of questions about, and that is, what is the difference between wearing, carrying, and transporting a firearm? Now, we just had a class this past weekend. There was about 50 students in the class, and pretty historically, we get this question at least once or twice at every class that we teach. So we thought, hey, it'd be a great idea to go ahead and do a video and try to explain what the difference really is, at least for Maryland. All right, because honestly, that's where we do most of our business. But I also want to, at the end, we'll go ahead and pivot in, and I'll show you what the federal law says, and then we'll look at what DC says, because a lot of our area here in the DMV, right, we cover Maryland, but we also deal a lot with DC and Virginia. So we would be doing an injustice if we didn't talk about DC at least a little bit. So guys, with that, let's go ahead and get right into it. First thing I want to do before we get into that is I want to show you guys something that we do that we recently started. We've been doing a lot of. And this past weekend, we had multiple clients end up signing up for this service. So I want to show you what it is real quick in case you guys decide that you want to sign up as well. It's super simple. On your Google bar here, you just go to PTPGun.com. All right. That'll take you to our website here. It's pretty simple. And then I want you to go ahead and navigate up here to the Services tab and then click on Application Assistance. One of the barriers that we see so often with our students is that they come out, they take the training, and then when it comes time to actually filling out the applications, they get nervous or they procrastinate or something happens and they just don't get around to filling out the applications, okay? We do not want that to be the reason that you are not able to exercise your right to defend yourself legally in the state of Maryland and elsewhere. So simply go to PTPGun.com. You could either type in /application assistance in the Google bar or go to Services and click Application Assistance there. And then we'll want you to go down here to this tab, which is the Application Submission Assistance, and go ahead and purchase that class. When you're inside here, you'll be able to select which license you're requesting application assistance for, be it the HQL, the Maryland Carry, Virginia, Utah, Florida, Arizona, or all, okay? And when you do that, what I want you to go ahead and do when you type that in is when it says, how did you find PTP? I want you to go ahead and select Mike right there, guys, because it'll be me most likely that's managing this for you. And we just like to keep things close to the cuff here, guys. All right. So with that, let's go ahead and bounce back over here to what the topic of discussion is today. And that is carry versus wear versus transport. All right. And for that, guys, we're going to go ahead and jump over here. Now, the reason we get this question so often, honestly, is because it's hard to define what the difference really is between wearing, carrying, or transporting a firearm. I mean, here we are in dictionary.com, and it shows here for the definition of carry is to take or support from one place to another, convey, or transport. All right. Now, if we go over here, same dictionary.com, and we look at the definition of transport, we see to carry, move, or convey from one place to another. Now, I mean, how can they expect us to understand the definition of something if you require the definition of another word to define it? Carrying is in the definition of transport, and transport is in the definition of carry. So the way that we generally do this, guys, and you're familiar with this because you've been subscribed to the channel for a long time. If you're not already subscribed, drop down there and hit that subscribe button now, guys. It helps take us to the next level. But we want to make sure we're doing things legally, all right? So we're going to go ahead and look into what the law says. So in order to do that, we're going to bounce back over here, and we are going to look at, this is criminal law statute, or title criminal law, and section 4 TAC 203. This is where we get a lot of information about who can and can't do stuff when it comes to firearms in the state of Maryland. All right. So Actually, I tell you what, before we jump into this one, let's go ahead and look at this. Section 5, Tac 303 of the public safety article. In here, it says a person shall have a permit issued under this subtitle before the person carries, wears, or transports a handgun, okay? And then that opens up the unless, all right? So for all intents and purposes, as of now, according to Maryland public safety, or the public safety article, section 5, tag 303, a person shall have a permit issued under this subtitle before the person wears, carries, or transports a handgun unless, and that'll take us back over here to the other code that we mentioned, which is in criminal law, section 4, tag 203. Basically, what this is saying is that if you're a law enforcement officer, a member of the armed forces on active duty, okay, so you'll have to show orders. You're a correctional officer, warden, sheriff, full-time assistant, or deputy sheriff at the state, or a temporary or part-time sheriff's office deputy. And there are some other things, but if you're not one of those, okay, then the wearing, carrying, or transporting of a handgun is against the law unless you have a permit to wear, carry, or transport the handgun. And that been issued under Title 5, Subtitle 3, as we just mentioned, of the public safety article. It goes on to say basically that Section 4203 makes it illegal to wear, carry, or transport a handgun regardless of whether it is concealed or out in the open, okay? Now, it also summarizes here that there is a requirement that the defendant knows that he or she has the gun, but this is some rebuttal presumption, all right? It makes an assumption that, it's right here, guys, that there is a rebuttal presumption that a person who transports a handgun under this paragraph transports the handgun knowingly. It's going to be really, so that's one of those situations, guys, and I'm sure you all have watched Cops, right, where the cop pulls you over and there's a couple of bad guys in there. They're smoking dope or something, or they're hiring prostitutes or buying dope or something like that. And the cop asks them, you know, hey, do you got anything in here I should know about? Gets him out of the car, has reasonable suspicion to search the vehicle, searches it, and finds a firearm underneath the passenger's seat. He then goes and asks everybody, hey, whose firearm is this? And everybody says, no, it's not mine. No, it's not mine. No, it's not mine. And who do they generally bust for it? Everybody. But the person they will most likely bust is going to be the driver, because that is the person that is in possession of the vehicle. Therefore, it is a reasonable, rebutable presumption that that person knowingly is transporting a firearm. It'll be up to that person as a defendant to prove that they are not knowingly transporting a firearm in their day in court. But by that point, they've been totally inconvenienced. They've spent a measurable time in jail, and it's going to be really hard to kind of pass that reasonable person test in that situation, guys. All right, back into it. So in this, it basically says that you have to fall into one of these categories, or you have to be transporting the firearm, the handgun, I should say, because the rules aren't necessarily the same for long guns. And we'll get into that in a future video, guys. But basically, you need to be transporting the handgun to or from the place of legal purchase, to or from a bona fide repair shop, or between bona fide residences of the person, all right? Now, again, guys, all of this stuff is going to be downloadable over there on our blog at PTPGun.com. And if you have any questions, just shoot me an email, mike@PTPGun.com. All right. So to or from bona fide residences of the person, or between a bona fide residence and a place of the business in which the business is owned and substantially operated and substantially owned by the person, if each handgun is unloaded and carried in an enclosed case or enclosed holster. What I want to point out, guys, that this language here, unloaded and carried in an enclosed case or an enclosed holster, is common across all of the categories in which you can legally transport a firearm in the state of Maryland. All right. Further, it goes on to say that if you can transport, wear, carry, or transport by a person of a handgun used in connection with an organized military activity, a target shoot, formal or informal target practice, sports shooting event, hunting, a DNR-sponsored firearms and hunter safety course, trapping, or a dog obedience training class or show, or while the person is engaged in, on the way to, or returning from that activity, if each handgun is unloaded and carried in an enclosed case or an enclosed holster. All right. Everything that we're seeing here, guys, is that there are very specific instances in where an individual can transport a firearm in the state of Maryland without having that wear and carry permit. Okay. Now, the last one here is well, here we go. Well, there's actually two more that we'll really get into, okay? The first is here that says if you're on your property or real property that you own, you do not have to have a permit, all right? So basically what that means, we get this question. Sometimes we get this question, and it's kind of funny. You know, there's been times where some other members of our company, I won't name them specifically, have been outside cutting the grass in nothing but a Speedo and a leg holster. All right. They are carrying their firearm on real property while cutting their grass. Is that against the law? No. Right. If you're on your property, you are allowed to wear, carry, transport that firearm however you want. Okay. However, you know, there are some disturbing the peace type laws that we're not really going to get into here, but you should consider. All right. Now, another place in which you can do it again. So if you're on your property, you can basically do whatever you like. All right. The other kind of gotcha here is that if you're a bona fide collector, and we did a video on obtaining your Maryland designated firearms collector. It's not a license. It's more like a certificate. We did a video on that, and it's going to be up here in a card right here, guys. But if you're a bona fide gun collector, you're allowed to move a part or all of your gun collection from place to place for public or private exhibition. But again, each handgun is unloaded and carried in an enclosed case or an enclosed holster. What I don't want you guys to do is dig into this, though, all right, and look at this section 4 right here where it says the wearing, carrying, or transporting by a person of a handgun used in connection with all of this stuff, a target shoot. I don't want you guys driving with a firearm holstered and concealed on your body going to formal or informal target practice, all right, with your ammunition, stored in a separate compartment, or even if your firearm is in an enclosed holster, meaning it's got a full strap and it's attached to your sidearm, maybe in the, strong body position back there about 4 o'clock, and it's concealed. And then on your other hip, maybe over here at 9 o'clock, you have some ammunition in a mag carrier or magazine pouch, depending on how what vernacular you use. By the letter of the law, yes, that is legal, okay? But I don't want you guys falling down and tripping over yourself on that. You can look at it. It's right here, all right? Criminal Law, Section 4, Tac 203, that the wearing, carrying, or transporting by a person of a handgun used in connection with an organized military activity or a target shoot or formal or informal target practice, sport shooting, event, hunting, DNR, hunter safety course, trapping, or dog obedience, you can do that on your way to it or from it if the handgun is unloaded and carried in an enclosed case or an enclosed holster. It has the language wearing and carrying and transporting right here. I'm going to go ahead and say, although it is written into law right here that there's nothing wrong with doing that, chances are, if you get pulled over, chances are that deputy is not going to have any idea what the hell you're talking about. Even if you quote this citation, Criminal Law, Section 4, Tac 203 to him, he's going to say, all right, mister, I'm not going to get my hands dirty on this. I'm going to book you. I'm going to confiscate your firearm and take you to jail. You can plead your case to the judge. Although it's legal to do so, I would recommend not doing that, all right? So essentially what we've covered so far, guys, is that there are very specific instances in when you can legally transport a firearm in the state of Maryland. More importantly, the rules for transporting also apply to wearing and carrying said handgun, I should say, in the state of Maryland. Basically, if you don't fall into one of these categories that we've listed here, or if you do not have a permit issued by the Maryland State Police to carry, wear, or transport a handgun, you're essentially breaking the law. And what's crazy about that, guys, is the penalties that come with it. So again, here in the criminal law section, if you scroll down to the bottom, what you'll see here is that they're punishable on first offense, okay, Let me make sure I could find that up. I want you guys to see this. All right. It's punishable by imprisonment for not less than 30 days on your first offense. All right. That's just for traveling. That's just for wearing, carrying, or transporting firearm, not to one of the events that's listed here and not having your permit. That's the first offense is 30 days. Your second offense is punishable for not less than 3 years. Guys, it's crazy. Think about it. If you purchase a firearm, and I'm just going to paint like the worst case scenario here. If you purchase a firearm from our good buddies over there at Gun Monkey's Armory over there in La Plata on Charles Street, and you're driving home to your home, maybe in Easton, all right, or Denton over there on the Eastern Shore. And so you are literally traveling, as it says, from the place of business where you purchase a firearm. I want to use the correct language here that the state of Maryland uses here, all right? So bear with me 1 second. From the place of legal purchase is what they say. So you're traveling from the place of legal purchase to your bona fide residence, and oh crap, you run out of gas, all right? Now you have to make a detour from your course. As soon as you detour, as soon as you break trail from the place where you purchased it to your home to stop and get gas or maybe stop and get some McDonald's or something like that, you've broken the law. And you're punishable by a minimum of 30 days in prison or incarcerated. And that's your first offense. Your second offense is 3 years. It's crazy. Know the law, guys, all right? And I know we started off talking about wearing, carrying, and transporting. In Maryland, there's not a difference, okay? You have to have a permit to do any of those. Or you have to be following those things that are going to be listed really neatly in a blog article over on PTPGun.com that we've already talked about here, and they're captured in the statute, in the criminal law statute in section 4 tag 203. All right, guys? Now, I know you guys are saying, Mike, you haven't answered the question. What's the difference between wearing, carrying, and transporting a firearm? All right, so as I mentioned here, Maryland doesn't really discriminate, although there are specific rules for transporting a firearm, okay? And we'll touch on that in just a moment. But what I want to go ahead and put out right here is that my philosophy, the way I heard it, and based on everything that I've read and the way that I will generally teach in the class is this. If you're wearing and carrying, if you're wearing it, you're carrying it. What I mean by that is this. If you're wearing it, it's attached to your body, all right? Meaning it's in a holster or it's somehow attached to your body. It's what they call the Virginia tuck or whatever, right? It's on your body. You are wearing it, but you're also carrying it, okay? Now, carrying it means you're wearing it, or you could literally just have the firearm in your hand. You're walking around carrying the firearm, or it is in what we like to call a disconnected holstered position, like it's in a purse or a briefcase or a fanny pack or something like that you are carrying with you, but you're not necessarily wearing, okay? So if you're wearing it, you're carrying it, and it's attached to your body. If you're carrying it, generally it's not necessarily attached to your body, but when you move, it moves, right? It's like that. What is that, the Ludacris song?
When I move, you move.
Just like that.
When I move, you move.
Just like that.
When I move, you move.
If you're transporting it, what that means is that where you go, it goes, but it's not in your fingers. It's not attached to your body, but it's traveling with you, okay? That's in a nutshell. And again, this is all going to be typed up so you could read it, regurgitate it, try to process that information I just gave you. But essentially, if you're wearing it, you're carrying it, meaning it's attached to your body somehow. If you're carrying it, that means it could be disconnected from your body, like in a purse, briefcase, fanny pack, something like that. And if you're transporting it, it does not necessarily have to be on your body, but where you go, it goes. All right. That's the difference. Now, what I want to jump into here, since there's no real Maryland law per se that gives the definition, what we're going to do is we're going to look at what happens if somebody from out of state comes into Maryland, or what happens if you're traveling through Maryland. Really what we're looking at for transporting, we have to look at U.S. code, okay? And for that, we're going to look at 18 U.S. Code, Section 926, Alpha, Interstate Transportation of Firearms. All right. Now, it's kind of wordy, but I want to make sure I use the correct language here. All right. Because words do matter, as we say all the time. All right. Notwithstanding any other provision of any law or any rule or regulation of a state. All right. Meaning that states have preemption. Or any political subdivision thereof, any person who is not otherwise prohibited by this chapter, meaning this little chapter where we derived this citation from, while transporting, shipping, or receiving a firearm shall be entitled to transport a firearm for any lawful purpose from any place where he may lawfully possess and carry such firearm to any other place where he may lawfully possess and carry such firearm if, during such transportation, the firearm is unloaded and neither the firearm nor any ammunition being transported is readily accessible or is directly accessible from the passenger compartment of such transporting vehicle, provided that in the case of a vehicle without a compartment separated from the driver's compartment, the firearm or ammunition shall be contained in a locked container other than the glove compartment or console. What does that mean? If you're driving a pickup truck and it doesn't have a trunk, all right, your firearm or ammunition shall be locked up in a case other than the center console or the glove compartment. All right. Now, noted. This is you must note that if you travel through Maryland with the firearm unloaded and secured, you are covered under a federal law. All right, guys. But if you interrupt your trip while in Maryland, you come under state law and may not transport a handgun, even unloaded and cased, except to do those few designated things that we talked about earlier, range, residence, etc., without a Maryland permit, all right? These restrictions on transportation do not apply to long guns. So what did we just learn, all right? If you are traveling across the state, it's really up to you to understand the laws, all right, guys? And we hope that that's one of the reasons why maybe you're coming here to PTPGun.com Firearms Training on YouTube, guys. Please drop down there, hit that subscribe button. We hope it's on you to understand the law, and we hope that you do. So if you're traveling from a firearm-friendly state like Virginia, and you're heading up to Pennsylvania, which is another firearm-friendly state, you have to traverse Maryland, all right? And in doing so, if you deviate your course to stop for fuel or gas or fuel or food or rest or something like that, you fall under Maryland law. And when you do that, there are very specific rules that are in place. Now, you say, okay, Mike, well, what would happen if, right? Well, let me say this. What if you own a home in Virginia and you own a business in Pennsylvania? Yes, if your firearm is cased, separated from its ammunition source and unloaded, and you are driving from your home in Virginia to your place of business in Pennsylvania, you haven't broken any laws, right? You're following the law. But what if you're heading from your home in Virginia to your girlfriend's house in Pennsylvania and you stop? Well, at that point, it's not a bona fide residence to another bona fide residence, and you have broken the law, all right? Now, this is the people, the troopers in Maryland, they're not going to be on your side. Well, we could hope that they would be, but more than likely, they're not going to be on your side. They're going to find a firearm in the car, and they're going to say, what the hell is this? It's going to be an ugly encounter. You can have a lot of questions to answer. All right, guys? So best thing is just to understand the law. All right? Do your best not to deviate from the law that are listed here and are broken down over there on the website, PTPGun.com. All right? Now, lastly, I want to look at a couple things here, and we talked about this a little bit. So in Maryland, what they say, what the laws are for transporting firearm, like how we mentioned in those very specific situations, it's not written in the law anywhere, but it is on maryland.gov in the state police frequently asked questions. You can go right down here into firearms. How can I legally transport firearms through Maryland, right? It says here that they must be unloaded in a carrying case, holster with the flap, and ammunition should be separate. It would be best to keep the unloaded weapon in the trunk where you do not have access to it. And then it goes on to say there are further regulations, but essentially you could only transport a handgun between residents to and from a repair shop, a sporting a shooting sporting event between a residence and place of business if substantially owned and operated by the person. For more information, contact the licensing division. But essentially, guys, it's just repeating everything I've already said to you. All right. That's the closest you're going to get to a definition of transport from the state of Maryland right there. All right. Now you say, okay, Mike, I came out to your class. I took the Maryland and the DC concealed carry course. What about DC? Now DC is interesting. All right. So in DC, transporting a firearm you already own and you're transporting it to get it registered. All right. When transporting your firearm in a vehicle, it must be unloaded with neither the firearm nor any ammunition readily accessible or directly accessible from the passenger compartment of the transporting vehicle. Further, if the vehicle does not have a compartment separate from the driver's compartment, the firearm or ammunition must be unloaded and contained in a locked container other than the glove compartment or console. If you're transporting your firearm in a manner other than in a vehicle, it must be unloaded inside a locked container and separate from any other ammunition. That means like if you're on the metro or something like that, guys. All right. Now, whenever in possession of a firearm, a registrant shall have in his or her possession the registration certificate. That's going to be your Form 219. All right, guys, which we have you guys fill out as part of your application assistance when you come to us for application assistance, as we mentioned at the beginning of this video. All right. Or an exact photocopy thereof for that firearm and exhibit the same upon the demand by a law enforcement officer. All right. So if DC officer says, hey, man, you got that firearm there. Have you registered it with DC yet? And then you're going to have to say, yep, here's a copy of my 219. Now, do not bring your firearm or ammunition when you go to register it, all right? Possession of ammunition for an unregistered firearm is prohibited in the District of Columbia. What does that mean, guys? If you're walking around with some .40 caliber ammunition in your pocket or in your car and you get pulled over and you do not have a .40 caliber firearm registered in the District of Columbia, you're in trouble. All right. You can only have ammunition for a firearm that is registered in the District of Columbia. Bam. All right. Now, if registering a semi-automatic firearm, you should bring the empty accompanying magazine. Now, please note that it is illegal to even possess a magazine that holds more than 10 rounds of ammunition in the District of Columbia. All right. Now, I know, guys, that's a lot of information. Did it answer your question? I hope. Is there a difference in the eyes of the state of Maryland between wearing, carrying, and transporting a firearm? Not really. If you have a permit, you're allowed to do all of those things. If you don't have a permit, if you don't have a permit, there are only a few places where you can legally wear and carry and transport your firearm. To transport it, you have to be going to or from one of those places we've mentioned. To wear and carry it, there are very specific guidelines there. I'm encouraging you to just do the right thing. Don't put yourself in a precarious situation where you might find yourself locked up. All right, guys. Now, for DC, the laws are a lot different than Maryland. That's why we stress that you understand all of the laws everywhere where you plan on taking your firearm. All right. It's a lot different up there. Maryland, you can't buy firearm. In Maryland, you cannot purchase, sell, offer for sale, or trade or manufacture a magazine greater than 10 rounds of capacity. But you can possess that magazine, meaning you can go down to Virginia, pick them up, bring them back. In DC, you cannot even possess a magazine with greater than 10 round capacity. All right. The laws are different. We encourage you to understand the laws everywhere where you're practicing safe firearms ownership. All right. With that, guys, we're going to wrap this thing up. As I mentioned, all of this stuff is going to be detailed pretty cleanly over there on our website, PTPGun.com, in the blog section. All right. If you guys have any ideas for future videos or content that you want covered or questions that they're just constantly bothering you and you're having a hard time finding the answer for, send them in to me, Mike at PTPGun.com. Send them into the show. Head over there to PTPGun.com, fill out our submission form there, and you could talk right to one of us at any time. With that, guys, we're going to ask you one more time, guys, go ahead and drop down there, hit that subscribe button if you find value in what we're doing. Please stick around on the channel as we get into more law-focused stuff where we start working on firearm drills and techniques. We do product reviews, occasional podcast interviews. We do a lot of field stripping and then sometimes disassembly and reassembly videos. There really is a lot on this channel for you, so we would appreciate if you stuck around. In order to find out when new videos come out, guys, all you have to do is hit that subscribe button and then turn on notifications. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, as always, learn, defend, prevail.